Chris Martin's truth about Taehyung leaves Jungkook in tears. The sound of the crowd was deafening. Thousands of armies held their light sticks high, illuminating the night sky in a sea of purple. But on that stage, something felt different. Something unspoken lingered in the air. Coldplay and BTS had just finished performing their hit collaboration, My Universe, and as the music faded, all eyes turned toward Chris Martin, who stepped forward with a look that carried both warmth and weight. No one expected what was about to happen. Chris took the microphone, smiling faintly, but there was a softness in his eyes that only comes when words carry deep meaning. His gaze shifted toward Taehyung, who stood just a few feet away, holding his mic loosely, unaware of what was coming. And then, Chris began to speak, not as the frontman of Coldplay, not as a global superstar, but as a friend, as someone who had come to know the real Kim Taehyung beyond the stage lights. Chris began, his voice steady but emotional. There are people in this world whose presence changes you. People who don't even realize how much light they bring into the lives of others. Taehyung is one of those people. The crowd erupted into cheers, but Chris wasn't finished. He took a deep breath, his voice lowering, almost as if speaking directly to ARMY and to Taehyung at the same time. There was a time, Chris continued, when Taehyung doubted himself. When he thought maybe he wasn't doing enough. When he felt like his voice, his heart, didn't matter as much as it truly does. And I want to say this, in front of everyone here, Taehyung, you've changed my life. You've reminded me that music is not just about sound, it's about the soul. The stadium went silent for a moment, as if every fan had stopped breathing. Jungkook, who had been standing beside Taehyung, slowly turned toward him. He knew Taehyung's struggles, the quiet moments when Taehyung would keep his worries to himself, the nights when he would smile for the cameras but be quieter backstage. Chris wasn't just praising him. He was revealing a truth few had heard before. As the words sank in, Taehyung blinked rapidly, his lips pressed together in a small, almost shy smile. But beside him, Jungkook's eyes glistened. He bit his lip, lowering his head slightly, trying to hold back the emotion building inside. For years, Jungkook had looked up to Taehyung, not just as a bandmate, but as an older brother, someone who could make him laugh in the middle of exhaustion, someone who would quietly check if he'd eaten before worrying about himself. Now, hearing Chris Martin, a figure they both respected deeply, acknowledge Taehyung's quiet battles and his irreplaceable worth, was too much for Jungkook to contain, and then it happened. Jungkook reached out, placing a hand on Taehyung's shoulder, his head bowing as a tear slipped down his cheek. The cameras caught it instantly, and armies around the world felt their hearts tighten. In that moment, there was no choreography, no planned gesture, only pure, unfiltered emotion. Chris stepped closer, giving both of them a small nod, as if to say, "This is what matters." This connection. The performance continued afterward, but the atmosphere had shifted. Every lyric felt heavier, every harmony richer. And for the rest of the night, Taehyung carried that warmth in his heart, a reminder that even when doubts whisper in the dark, there are people who see the truth in you. Backstage later, Jungkook would admit in a soft voice, "Hyung, when Chris said that, I thought about how many times you've helped me without even knowing. You've always been the strong one, but you don't always have to be." Taehyung just smiled, ruffling Jungkook's hair. "It's okay, Kookie. We're here for each other." The clip of that moment went viral within hours, trending worldwide with hashtags like #TaehyungAppreciation, #JungkookCrying, and #ChrisMartin. Fans began sharing their own stories of how Taehyung's voice, his art, and even his little gestures had helped them through dark times. What started as a concert became something much more, a reminder that words can heal, that friendship can cross cultures, and that sometimes the truth we need to hear comes from the most unexpected voices. And as the lights dimmed that night, armies knew they had witnessed something rare, not just music history, but a moment of genuine human connection that will be remembered for years to come. So if you're watching this now, let it be a reminder, appreciate the people who bring light into your life. Tell them what they mean to you, and never underestimate the power of honest words, because sometimes those words can change everything. The stadium was alive that night, filled with thousands of armies waving their light sticks like stars scattered across the darkness. BTS and Coldplay had just finished performing My Universe, their voices still echoing in the crisp night air. But then, something unexpected happened, something that would turn this performance into a memory fans would carry forever. Chris Martin stepped forward, his face warm but thoughtful, as if weighing every word before speaking. The cheering softened, and the crowd leaned in. Beside him, Taehyung stood with his usual calm presence, not knowing that in just a few moments, Chris would reveal a truth that would leave the stadium breathless. "You know," Chris began, his voice steady yet tinged with emotion, "in this life, you meet people who completely change you, people who don't even realize how much light they bring into the world. Taehyung is one of those people." The fans roared, but Chris continued, his eyes never leaving Taehyung. "There was a time," he said softly, "when Taehyung doubted himself, when he thought maybe his voice, his heart, didn't matter as much as it truly does. But I want to say this in front of everyone here. Taehyung, you've reminded me why I make music. You've reminded me that music is not just about sound, it's about soul." The crowd went silent. It wasn't the kind of silence born from boredom. It was the rare kind when thousands of people hold their breath at the same time. Jungkook, standing next to Taehyung, turned his head slowly, his eyes searching his Hyung's face. He knew these words carried weight because he had seen Taehyung in those quiet, unguarded moments when the cameras were off, when the smiles were a little more fragile. Chris wasn't just giving praise, he was revealing something intimate. Something Taehyung had never spoken about openly. Taehyung smiled faintly, his eyes glistening, but he kept his composure. Jungkook, however, felt his own emotions rising. The memories rushed back, late-night talks on the tour bus, Taehyung's small but constant gestures of care, the way he would always check on the others before thinking about himself. Jungkook had looked up to him for years, not just as a bandmate, but as family, and now to hear Chris Martin, a legend in the music world, acknowledge Taehyung's quiet strength was almost too much for Jungkook to take. He lowered his head, blinking rapidly, but the tears still came. Cameras caught the moment instantly, Jungkook reaching out, placing a firm hand on Taehyung's shoulder, his voice trembling as he whispered something only Taehyung could hear. The crowd erupted not in screams, but in emotional cheers. As if they too were comforting Jungkook, Chris gave them both a nod, smiling gently before stepping back. The band began playing again, but the air felt different now. Every lyric seemed heavier, every harmony richer with meaning. And when the song ended, Taehyung glanced at Jungkook, giving him a small, reassuring smile, the kind that says, "I'm okay, and so are you." Backstage later that night, Jungkook admitted quietly, "Hyung, when Chris said those words, I thought about all the times you've helped me without even knowing. You've always been so strong for us, but you don't always have to be." Taehyung ruffled his hair, chuckling softly. "We're brothers, Cookie. That's what we do." Within hours, the clip spread like wildfire online. Hashtags like #Taehyung appreciation, #Jungkook crying, and #Chris Martin trended globally. Fans began sharing their own stories of how Taehyung's deep voice, his artistry, and his kindness had touched their lives. This wasn't just a concert, it was a reminder of the impact one person can have without even realizing it. And for armies everywhere, it was proof that sometimes the most powerful music isn't a song at all. It's the truth spoken from one heart to another. So if you're hearing this now, take a moment to think about the people who bring light into your life. Tell them what they mean to you. Because as Chris Martin reminded us that night, those words might be exactly what they need to hear.